new research, I know you've seen, from Israel and Canada suggests that even one shot of the Pfizer vaccine can provide 85 to 90% protection. And the UK is delaying some of its second doses up to 12 weeks. Can you explain to Americans why the US isn't adjusting its strategy when millions of them who want a vaccine, number one, can't get one?
Well, Dana, it's a good question, but the answer is that we want to do things based on the science. First of all, there are two scenarios. The one you're talking about the Pfizer giving one dose and having a good degree of protection versus what they're doing in the UK. So let me very briefly explain both. The Pfizer situation, where they gave a vaccine and after a period of time, at 15 to 28 days, they had good protection. What we don't know, and this is the risky business about it, we don't know how durable that effect is going to be. We know for sure that when you give a prime with the Pfizer, followed by a boost 21 days later, that you get a 94 to 95% efficacy. And the difference between the level of antibodies after one dose versus two doses is about tenfold higher. And that is really important because when you have that high a degree comparable to the single dose alone, that's the cushion that you would like to have when you get a variant that isn't as well protected against by the antibodies induced by the vaccine, but you have enough level to be able to prevent at least severe disease. So the science points directly towards continuing with what we know about from the clinical trial. Now, we always keep an open mind to continue to look at data and make decisions based on the evidence and the data. Very quickly, the situation with the UK, a bit different because they're talking about an entirely different vaccine platform. They're talking about a vaccine that was developed using a chimp adenovector as opposed to the mRNA. So they really are not comparable when you talk about the duration that you'll wait before you get the second dose when you're talking about Pfizer or Moderna, which is what we're using here in the United States.
You and the president have suggested that we'll approach normality toward the end of the year. What does normal mean? Do you think Americans will still be wearing masks, for example, in 2022?
You know, I think it is possible that that's the case. And again, it really depends on what you mean by normality. If
right,
normality
that's what I want you to define
exactly the way it... Yeah. No, Dana, it's important because if normality means exactly the way things were before we had this happen to us, I mean, I can't predict that. I mean, obviously, I think we're going to have a significant degree of normality beyond what the terrible burden that all of us have been through over the last year. That as we get into the fall and the winter, by the end of the year, I agree with the president completely that we will be approaching a degree of normality. It may or may not be precisely the way it was in November of 2019, but it'll be much, much better than what we're doing right now.
Why do you think Americans might have to wear masks into 2022?
You know, because it depends on the level of dynamics of virus that's in the community, and that's really important because that gets back to something again that you said. If you see the level coming down really, really very low, I want it to keep going down to a baseline that's so low that there's virtually no threat, or not no, it'll never be zero, but a minimal threat that you will be exposed to someone who is infected. So if you combine getting most of the people in the country vaccinated with getting the level of virus in the community very, very low, then I believe you're going to be able to say, you know, for the most part, we don't necessarily have to wear masks. But if we have a level of virus that is at that level that it was months and months ago, like 20,000 per day is a heck of a lot better than what it's been. But that's still very high level of virus in the community. I want to see it go way down. When it goes way down and the overwhelming majority of the people in the population are vaccinated, then I would feel comfortable in saying, you know, we need to pull back on the masks. We don't need to have masks.
Wow. So your timeline is taking us out a year, maybe 2 years, maybe even longer.
No, I can't say that, Dana, and I don't want it to be said that, because then it'll be a soundbite that's not true.
Okay, good.
I'm saying we don't know. We don't know. And the president said it very, very well at the very end of his press conference when he was in Michigan at the Pfizer plant. He said, you ask me to make projections. These are just projections that are estimates. And a lot of things can happen to modify that. And that's the reason why we've got to be careful, because you have variants that you need to deal with. There are so many other things that would make a projection that I give you today on this Sunday wind up not being the case 6 months from now.
Understood.